Everyone is obsessed with the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively case, even Joe Rogan.
Following the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively thing?
Bro.
I never thought we'd talk about Joe Rogan on here, A, because I really don't know much about him. I'm pretty sure he was the Fear Factor host. B, my brothers talk about like his podcast. Once we were listening to his podcast, driving from Charlotte, North Carolina, it was a 12-hour drive. My brother played it for hours. That is what put me to sleep. But what I do know is that he was one of the last people I would expect to weigh in on this situation, but I agree with him. He mentions how Blake and Ryan effed up. This is effing up their reputations.
Blake Lively, talk about ruin your reputation, and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, they fucked up. Ryan's trying to get out of it now. He's trying to get out of the lawsuit. And they're like, you were a key part of this.
This is what you get, though. This is what you get. You're trying to fucking ruin a guy's livelihood.
They were trying to take over the movie and the whole franchise. He owned the franchise.
They're fucked.
The whole thing's crazy.
They're fucked.
And he's suing the New York Times, and he's got a great case.
He's going hard in the paint. But that's what it takes.
That's what it takes.
It's like Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
He's like, all right.
Yeah.
He did for the boys.
Exactly.
You need real motherfuckers to be like, nah, man, I ain't going out like this.
Yeah, especially a guy like that. It was like known as being like this really sweet, nice guy.
Yep.
And then it's like, all right,
dude,
enough.
He also seems very impressed by Justin Baldoni's receipts provided.
Posted the receipts.
Oh,
he's like, oh, remember our text exchange? Bah, bah,
How about
bah,
she told him to come into the dressing room while she was breastfeeding?
With fun
and then
ass.
part of the complaint was that he came into the dressing room while I was breastfeeding. Like, you literally have a text exchange back and forth.
One thing he mentioned that I have been saying repeatedly is that Blake and Ryan never expected Justin Baldoni to fight back. They never expected him to come with this lawsuit, to come with all these receipts, because they expected him to be afraid of their A-list status.
They just never thought that anybody was going to come out with the receipts.
Because no one's ever done it, because everyone usually just bows down.
Because everyone's scared.
Yeah.
Because Ryan Reynolds A-list, Blake Lively A-list. Like, they're the queens.
I don't know who's still referring to Blake and Ryan as A-list, but like, can we stop that? If anyone refers to Blake Lively as an A-list celebrity or an A-list actress, just stop talking. No. Like, if you've watched her act, you are lying.
We have to start with this. This was brought to my attention. Full credit to Steph with the deets. I'm actually kind of mad at her for putting this on my radar, so I'm giving her credit, but also want to say, Steph with the deets, this was a deet that I did not need, okay? This is a deet that I did not need. And so when this came across, I was like, ooh, girl, I wish I did not know this, but she does amazing work, and you should follow her on TikTok if you want these deep dives and all these little tidbits that she's getting on the case. So I did know, because I had looked into, obviously very deeply looked into the Deadpool Wolverine movie, I did know that Ryan had cast his 7-year-old daughter, Inez, which is Taylor Swift's goddaughter, in the Deadpool movie. Okay, cute. She's 7. She's ready to be in a film. Maybe this wouldn't be the film of choice for me from a Christian household, but to each their own. And I did know that the daughter, the kid pool, has a potty mouth, which makes sense given the character of Deadpool. You're expecting the kid to have, I guess, a potty mouth, and that's supposed to be funny. I was aware that the kid said some highly inappropriate things, but I had assumed that the kid was in the costume and they likely used either a voice actor or an AI voice tool to say some of those things, because absolutely no person, I don't care how funny you think you are in Hollywood, would want their precious daughter, of all people, to make comments about Hugh Jackman's penis being in their father's mouth.
Hey, when I want your opinion, I'll take Wolverine's out of your mouth.
That's kid. Guiltily, that is my daughter, Inez.
I'm so sorry we have to admit that.
And I am Father of the Year over here for allowing her to say such language, which, to her credit, she really didn't want to say. And then came back later and said, I want to say it now, when I started looking at other people to play it.
Yeah, but Ryan, to our discredit, we made Nezzy do I'm not you 70 to 500 versions of that line.
Yeah, I'm going to pay for that later.
Yep, I think right about now is when you're going to pay for it, because that is just unbelievable. He is admitting that she was not, Nezzy, as she is called, was not comfortable doing this line. And Ryan essentially said to her that I'm going to find another actor, which is pointedly ridiculous, by the way. He basically says, oh, well, I started looking at different actors and actresses. And then that's when she said, I do want to do it. Wildly manipulative to do to a 7-year-old kid. But what's really stunning about this is think about what he is saying there, and the arguments that Blake is making and that he is making in the CRD complaints against Justin Baldoni. Like, it is just stunning to me what they view as harassment, what they view as forcing someone to do something, an extra gratuitous that wasn't in the initial script, and what they're perfectly fine with. And you add this to the fact that he slapped a child extra gratuitously, that all he believes is riffing. Now you're hearing from the director of his film that they made the 7-year-old do this line from 70 to 500 times as a discredit to us. And yeah. And they're turning it into a joke. And they want us to believe that Justin Baldoni is the creep in all of this. This is running parallel to him shouting at Justin Baldoni in a penthouse about his wife being uncomfortable. He's basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not going to have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite, in my viewpoint, of a fatherly instinct to protect your child, to protect your child's innocence, motherly instinct to protect your child's innocence. I would never allow this to fly because it's not necessary.
As a parent, I'm sick to my stomach hearing this story. My daughter was an actor and I was her manager, and I pulled her out of the industry, honestly, out of fear of a situation like this. I was waiting for a news outlet to confirm this because I heard rumors of this, but now we have confirmation from the Daily Mail. So Ryan, on the set of Deadpool, cast his daughter Inez to play like the child version of Deadpool, and she was uncomfortable with a line they wanted her to say, and it was, "Take Wolverine's shoo-shoo out of your mouth." Okay, she didn't want to say it. So after begging and coercing her, he finally threatens to cast another actor instead of her, basically bumping her out. At which point she reluctantly agrees to do it and had to say the line allegedly 50 to 100 times. Not only that, but there were like other adults on set watching this take place. Here she is. Look how little she is. I am just stunned, and this is a huge reason why I took my daughter out of acting, despite, like, it's good money, don't get me wrong, but situations like this where you're the one making your daughter uncomfortable, you're the one making your daughter say something she doesn't want to say, and then the only reason she does it is you threatened her that somebody else would do it. As if I actually was still going to wait for everything to settle, but now I actively dislike this individual. Like, that is the worst parenting I've ever heard in my life. You're supposed to be her advocate on set. You're the one who's supposed to say, no, she doesn't want to do this. Get somebody else. Also, the line wasn't that funny. It was straight up vulgar. Nobody really likes when a kid is using foul language. It's never funny. Flabbergasted.
The newsfeed and algorithm moves fast these days. Now, I would expect that we're going to be getting a news drop, especially Thursday, Friday. We're likely going to get a news drop from Blake and Ryan about something, probably hitting back about right-wing extremists and all this other stuff in regards to Joe Rogan. But look at the algorithm, guys, on Google. This is SEO, organic SEO. You guys hear me talk about SEO manipulation all the time. This is organic. Now, when we're looking at organic SEO, this is something that happens organically. Joe Rogan amplified the narrative organically. He spoke about it casually on the Joe Rogan Experience on his podcast. He was talking about Harvey Weinstein and Me Too, and it just had a natural segue into false Me Too claims and the damage it does to individuals when there's fake Me Too claims. And then it led right into Justin Baldoni. It was an organic conversation that everyone has picked up. You guys have picked it up. Creators have picked it up. Legacy media has picked it up, and it is blowing up organically. Now, I hear you guys. Some of you guys have been nervous that people are going to run with, oh, it's just like right-wingers. Here's the thing. Blake and Ryan, that's their only hand. That's their only card right now. That is literally their only card. They even have this came out first thing this morning. I saw it, did a video on it on YouTube as well. This came out first thing this morning. Their only card is like, well, people that support Justin are right-wing Trumpers. Even Paul Feig's wife said that in the comments the one day. So if they continue to play that hand, everyone's going to get sick of it. And I think we're also getting to that point because everyone, whether you're right, left, in the middle, whether you live in Canada like me, Australia, Europe, wherever, no matter where you live, everyone is getting tired of being clumped in as like right-wing extremists. And so the problem is if they keep pushing that card, they're actually going to push people away. So let them. Let Blake and Ryan keep thumping the drum of right-wing Trumpers because I promise you it's going to blow up.
Lively's friends are pissed at her, according to a news source. Spoke with a source who's very close to in fact, he's being deposed. He's that intimate with, in this circle of friends that they have. But what I was told is that all of the friends are just pissed off, like including, all the way down to his Deadpool director, Sean Levy, who's best friends. And then you got all those people who were, Bradley Cooper and everybody who went to the screening.
Yep, Blake Lively is bringing everyone down with her. Even her husband doesn't want to get involved. He wanted to get dismissed. I thought this comment was really interesting. This user asked a lawyer whether Hugh, Colleen, Jenny, Brandon, Taylor, Isabella would need to bring their own lawyers to their depositions, and she says they usually do, but it's at their own expense. You might be wondering why Blake wouldn't pay for it. Well, it's because from an optics standpoint, it would make Blake look really bad to pay for their legal representation. So Blake is willingly dragging her friends into this lawsuit. It takes up their time, it costs money, and it's stressful. The fact that her husband won't even come to her defense and is asking to be dismissed is crazy, and I would be really surprised if their marriage is staying strong.
Guys, this is getting dark, okay? Bear with me on this one. I'm going to take you through what Blake did to try to secure her PGA producer title in this film. And it is messed up, okay? This is not okay. All right, so December 28th is essentially when Justin was like, you know what? I'm going to throw in the towel. Everyone knows how I feel about all this and how angry I am that Blake has taken over our film and somehow rewrote a movie we spent years developing, writing, and funding. So yes, I am furious and sad, but I will continue to back up with the goal of getting us to the finish line. I've come to terms with the fact that the only way out is through. I am waving the white flag and submitting. I'm sure none of us have the energy to fight anymore. All right, so he threw in the towel. This is December 28th. Flash forward to June 18th. Sony Marketing requests that Baldoni waive his film buy credit. Given that this was a contractual right that Baldoni negotiated, Sony needed Baldoni to put in writing that he was waiving his right to a, quote, film buy credit. For clarity, there would be no reason for Baldoni to waive this right without Lively requiring him to do so. Ultimately, he did it. On the same day that Baldoni waives his film buy credit, Wayfair also reluctantly agrees to give Lively a producer credit on the film. This was an ask that she took to Sony, despite it being a decision properly made by Wayfair. June 20th, shortly after granting Lively the producer credit, Heath was informed that Lively had reached out to Sony yet again, this time to ask that Baldoni and Heath write a letter on her behalf so that she may be considered to receive the PGA mark. Both Baldoni and Heath did not feel that her work was warranted to the PGA mark, which the PGA mark is a part of the Producers Guild, and she was trying to swindle her way into getting into that and getting the mark. So Heath wrote to Sony basically saying, we have agreed to give Blake a producer credit on the film. She would not be getting a PGA mark as that is not applicable. Well, that pissed her off and she went to Sony again. It says Heath had learned from Sony that Lively was extremely displeased with his response and told Sony that as a result of the men not submitting the letter, any goodwill left was now gone. Stay with me here for a second. So Jamie reaches directly out to Blake and says, so many of the conversations have been had with third parties. I do understand why. However, I believe it could be helpful if you and I had a direct conversation in an effort to find a path through this. He's just asking for a Zoom, for a conversation. This girl right here says, hey, Jamie, feel free to send through anything you'd like to say here. So no, she's not acknowledging a Zoom. So he says, I respect your decision to not have a call. I'll be fully transparent. It was indeed a tough call to receive when asked to write a letter to the PGA. I do believe you can understand to some extent why that might be. With that said, I have consulted further with Justin, and as a result, he and I have both agreed to write the letter. He reluctantly said that he would send the letter. And she goes, "Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you both acknowledging the work. You can send the letter to me here via email, and I'll pass along to the people I'm speaking with at the PGA. I'll let them know that your letters are coming." What the hell, man? So here's the letter that they were forced to write to the PGA. At the same time, though, to cover his ass, Heath wrote a letter to his attorneys. Here is the letter he sent to his attorney, basically putting it in writing that she was extorting them and they were trapped and forced to send that letter to PGA. I'm going to read it on here because it's really hard to read up here. It's on page 93 on the timeline. It says, "Hey, everyone. I'm writing to you in regards to a letter that I wrote on behalf of Justin and myself addressed to the Producers Guild. As you know, we receive a request to write a recommendation on behalf of Blake for her to receive the PGA mark. This was a request that we feel was unreasonable and cold-hearted. Essentially, the movie has been taken unjustly from Justin as a director and essentially from Wayfair's control due to the extortion of Blake. Justin and I ended up agreeing to write the letter due to feeling trapped. She continues to hold a threat over our heads, and every time we try and hold a line, she uses that threat either directly or indirectly to get us to fold. Given the high profile of the movie, the partnership with Sony, the amount of money invested, and the need to complete the movie, we have written the letter on her behalf, omitting the truth of how and why she was able to contribute in the ways we listed. There is nothing to do with this letter now. It only serves as a way to memorialize why the letter was sent in the first place, should we ever need to explain it." That was smart. Like, he put it in writing that she extorted the film. That's dark, man. This is dark, and it's really not fair.
I didn't have anything against it, but I just thought I want to carve my own path and find what I want to do. And it was the thing that I was groomed for without any of us realizing it, my family included. I grew up on sets. My parents had acting classes my whole life that I went to.
Be better.
There's actually a clip going around, I don't know if you've seen it on Instagram, where you two are in the street and it's where you really kiss for the first time, and she's, sort of showing you, like pulling you into her and showing you how to embrace her.
Yeah.
And people are loving that.
Yeah, look.
Seeing the collaborative effort.
I don't think people realize how involved she was in this movie. And she's a producer on the film.
Adapting it and growing it and expanding on it. But Colleen was incredible in saying, like, okay, the book is one thing and the movie also is another thing. And we have to make sure that we're not just making a replica of the book if it isn't always the best and most authentic choice for the moment. And I think because of that, it's a very true adaptation of the book. Like, it is very, very, very true to the book and in so many ways. And it also, at the same time, can have an authenticity and a life to it that is even outside of the book slightly, because everybody came to it given the authorship to bring the most honest performance and the most honest interpretation and the most honest pieces of themselves as storytellers to the film.
Friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. I love this topic. I'm so invested. I just spent probably 6 hours reading through court records, documents, talking to Chat GPT to get their opinion. Does anyone use Chat GPT just to get an insight? I still do a lot of sleuthing myself, but I'm really into chat to ask specific questions on topics I may not necessarily know. But I also spent a bunch of time reading through different answers from all the different parties that are involved in these lawsuits. Yesterday, we talked about some of the issues that came up when it comes to Blake Lively, and that she's, one, not an employee of Wayfair, Two, because she's not an employee and she used a loan out agency and was under a contract, unless she violated or that contract was violated, she really has no grounds to sue. Because all of the issues were resolved with the document that they all agreed to, the 17 protections, she doesn't have grounds to now go back and state that she was harassed and they did nothing about it, because the very document that they all signed would state that they took measures to make her comfortable. But something I noticed as I was going through these various answers were a couple things. One of Blake Lively's claims in her 17 point had to do with COVID. And I don't know if you're aware, but in 2023, life was back to normal. We live in a world now where COVID just exists, and it's just kind of like this unfortunate thing we all have to deal with. It's like another harsher variation of the flu. I've had it, I think, 3 times, and I hate it every time I get it. But in 2023, under the law, like, there was nothing that Wayfair had to do to ensure compliance on a set. And it's ironic that Blake would bring up COVID precautions on a set when all the spring she was at Taylor Swift concerts. She was at Wrexham in March of 2023 in a packed stadium watching a soccer game with no mask. She was in London and UK at the Wrexham Stadium only days before she claimed to have been exposed to COVID on set without a mask. And the probability that she got COVID from anyone on set or she picked it up herself, you can't put that on Wayfair. So the COVID claim is just another exaggeration of her to try to enforce something that she wasn't even living by in her own right, in her own life. Blake Lively, in her complaint, alleges that Sony and Wayfair signed this contract, that the 17-point rider agreement to her contract, but Sony didn't sign anything. Sony was only a distributor. They were not the studio that was making the film. So they really had no reason to sign anything. They had no contract with Miss Lively. But I noticed something about
Lively is now openly admitting that she did not have a shred of evidence when she conspired to ruin Justin Baldoni's entire life. Why do we know that? Because of a subpoena. That information came to the public in the form of a subpoena on Wednesday. In case you missed it, her and Ryan Reynolds' lawyers sent a subpoena to 3 phone carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, seeking records pertaining to Baldoni, producer Jamie Heath, and, of course, the billionaire Wayfair Studios co-founder Steve Sarowitz. Now, the subpoenas also are against the publicists that are involved, Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan. Not entirely unusual to subpoena messages, by the way, pertaining to a lawsuit. That's actually totally normal. If you think that there are some messages, it's a limited scope that you get. I've been involved in this. You give them forward and it allows them to look for a piece of evidence that they insist is in there, whatever. But this is not what they're doing. This is not a limited scope subpoena. This is what a spokesperson for Lively said. They said, quote, "Phone records belonging to all of the individual defendants will expose the full web of individuals who were involved in the smear campaign against Ms. Lively. Such records will provide critical and irrefutable evidence not only about who, but also about when, where, and how their retaliation plan came together and operated." So you're thinking, wow, they must have a smoking gun in there. And then Brian Friedman drops this. Basically, they are asking not just for messages pertaining to this lawsuit, like so that they know that they're looking for a conversation between so-and-so and so-and-so on this week, on this day. They are seeking all calls, text, and location data, everything in their phone, stretching back 2.5 years. They want everything, every message they've ever sent. You don't ask for every message in someone's entire phone spanning back 2.5 years. Like I was personally offended when I heard this, because I think what they're relying on is, again, people in the public to be stupid and think that that's normal. Of course it's not normal. Could you know what you would find? Basically, you could paint any person in the entire world as a bad person if you had access to 2.5 years of out of context messages. I would be painted as the most racist person in the entire world. The amount of times that I send racist messages to my sisters, like literally like every day, I'm like, stop doing that. Stop being black. Wake up. Stop being black, out of context. Oh my God. The headline would read, Candace Owens told her sister, stop being black. Why would she say this? How could she do this? I sent terrible messages, horrific messages to my girlfriends, joking, funny messages, Savannah, redneck messages, Mark. I lean into this, the media stereotype of me being anti-Semitic. I send Jewish jokes to Mark. Could you imagine you just get access to everything?
This now after TikTok, all of us have been supporting Justin, saying all of this since December. Okay, now that Joe Rogan says it, people are going to start paying attention. You're going to see all sorts of people start coming out and using all the research that we've done, everything that we have said here, countless of videos. People did not pay attention to us because we're here on TikTok, you know? We're like the lower class, you know? We're like down here. But now Joe Rogan mainstreamed it, okay? Using things, info that we have fed them for all these months. And I know people think, oh, you just go in there and you talk about your opinion and you say this and that. No, work goes into this. This is the fucking timeline I had to keep myself because I didn't know what was going on. I had to separate it. Blake Lively, what she did, when she filed, her amended complaint, her memo, Baldoni, his file, his countersuit, him suing, you know, Stephanie Jones just came out, the third parties, Jed Wallace, Leslie Sloan, Ryan Reynolds, all of these things where we have read legal document after legal document, okay? Sometimes taking a break in the bathroom for 35 minutes at your day job that pays the bills just so that you can recap a 2-minute video, okay? So now Rogan wants to come in and say, oh, you know what he did to this guy? We know. We've been here. Where you been?